You may lose.
Up for us in our reporting. It's probably a question we'll just need to go and check on. I've actually brought my officer's report with me this time. So I do have a bit of a link. So there is a theme. Which theme would that be under? It's Greenfields.
Great. There's a greenfield and urban sprawl topic, but then there's probably a more specific greenfield opportunity sites and areas.
Yes. So did we deal with that first one on Thursday? Or we didn't, did we?
No, because we just basically started at the top of the report and went through. Yeah.
Well, let's deal with those issues first off, I think, because they are an important idea. Thanks, Victoria. But before we do anything, we should just go through our lovely karakia to get us off on the right foot for the day.
Kiti uru, whakataka taho, kiti tōna. Kia mā kina kina ki uta. Kia mā tara tara ki tai. E hi aki ana te atakura. E tio, I hoka, I hohanga. Ti hei Māori.
Right. So in terms of, we have no apologies for today, and we've just noted that declaration of interest management item under our agenda item 2. So thanks for getting that in the minutes, Kathy. Right, so let's get stuck into it. So Liz, can you just chat us through, Liz and Kathy, what you've done as aids for us today in terms of getting preparation?
So it's reasonably straightforward, but so as we talked about, we'll just work through the officers' recommendations in their report, and all we've really done is we have just added in, so if you look at the screen now, we've just referenced the we had this issue that, of course, in the right of reply being the officer's final recommended version of the draft spatial plan, the page numbers are different to the original plan. So we've just added that in. So where the recommendations say amend page, what have you, that's of the original spatial plan being this hard copy. And then in brackets where it says ROR, that means the right of reply or response, pages 62 to 63. So that's the appendix B to what the officers circulated last week. So it just makes it clear where to look in the original if you wanted to see the original, but it makes it clear where in the appendix B, being the full track change recommended version, those changes are. And this one doesn't have it, but in the instances where the officers have made an additional recommendation, we've just slotted that into this version as well, just so that all of the recommendations we can work through in one hit rather than coming back to the additional recommendations as a separate topic.
Perfect, thank you, Liz. And there is a little roadmap too with the different page numbers here. So, so Liz has done some good work just preparing this deliberations document for us. Liz, I do have one question about the mapping changes. So these were from the initial write-off, sorry, initial officer's report, and the maps did have the various recommendations on the bottom. So I think at the end we should just pick that up again. We do have another version of some of the maps that was in the right of reply, but not all of them. Those are still a work in progress, but we should go through today on the mapping.
So I think that in this recommendations, it includes the changes to maps. Okay. But the key thing to note was that in that, and I think this occurred in the right of reply version, it was a red box at the bottom of the map saying here are the recommended changes rather than them actually changing the map itself.
Yes.
So I think it's really about referring to the red boxes rather than what is actually shown on the map, because my understanding is we did get an updated version of the original recommended changes in terms of the actual maps, but not for the right of reply.
Yes, okay.
I think that's right.
Yes. We heard from Ben that the maps were being worked on, but they're still a work in progress. So that's not a problem for our timing. We've got in the right of reply, there are updated amendments that they're recommending to us. So if we've got those documents, we'll go to those when we get to the maps. Okay, and the other thing there's two things that officers were working on for us post last Thursday. It was the width of the rail corridors designations. I've forgotten the second.
The ONL.
Oh, the ONL.
Facial
item issue. So we can just pick those up as we go through, and we'll wait to hear from the officers on those matters in due course. Okay, ready to go?
Just for clarification before we start, we're looking at Appendix B that we got on the 14th.
Yes.
And that's written, and that's equivalent to the ROR.
Yes.
And the draft spatial plan is the officers' report on October the 4th.
No, I've got it dated the 14th. Oh no.
The original.
No, I think sorry if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that the officers gave us a marked up version in there attached with this main report. Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't quite sure what the question was, Grant.
On last time we were looking at 3 documents. We were looking at the
Original.
the original, and then we were looking at Appendix B.
Yes.
And then we were also looking at the draft Greater Christchurch Plan Officers Report on submissions on October the 4th.
Yes,
Right.
that's
Yes.
right.
So,
So the officers report, the one you've got in your hand, is the one that's on the screen.
my query there, could you scroll up to get a page number? Because
The page numbers in this document will be different because as we're adding text in.
Oh, okay. It's getting
Yeah.
stretched out.
So I would look instead for the, see on the left-hand side, there's a 4.5.3.
Okay, so go
I'd
for
use your section numbers would be probably easier.
okay.
But I think the general idea is we'll work through chronologically, except for this first issue. Is that correct?
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
There's 3 versions of the spatial plan. The draft is notified. The 4th of November version from the officers when they refer back to us.
Yep.
And the 14th of November version where they provided some additional recommendations.
Okay.
Based around our questions.
and this, I'm fine with that. And this document here, are they page numbers?
Yeah,
or
so
what are
it's just a cheat sheet because the issue that we had on Thursday with the references in there to pages being to the original spatial plan not lining up with the Appendix B that we were working from.
Yeah.
So this is just useful to keep reference to. So if you're looking in either version and you go, oh, where am I looking in the original or where am I looking in the officer's eye?
Okay.
It's just a quick cheat sheet just to locate it.
Okay. Yep, that's useful.
Yep.
All good?
Yep.
And there'll be a 4th version, which will go with our recommendations.
It's one step too far at this time in the morning, Stephen.
Yeah.
Come on, it's Monday morning. I know we're not all fluffy ducks, but yeah, let's get into the process. So take us there. So what theme are we dealing with here now, Liz?
So this is an opportunity so this is to do with housing. And there's some other things, but in terms of this one, this is to do with, so not the greenfield opportunities at this point, unless you want to jump straight into them, but more broadly about greenfields and urban sprawl. So this recommendation is the recommendation that relates to including criteria around greenfield.
So instead of mapping them, the officers are recommending to us that this criteria that the spatial plan sets out for
What section of the
so we should discuss this in terms of Nicole's conflict. Is this is dealing with broad locations for residential development and desired pattern of growth. And it's a list of criteria that the broad locations, when they come up and are reviewed in future plans and probably private plan change resource consent applications, any council or decision maker working for the council will have to have regard for these criteria when looking at proposed additional greenfield areas over and above what's already in the spatial plan. Okay. I'm sorry, Nicole, I think this is just too close, and we'll, out of abundance of caution, Nicole is stepping back from the table. We still have a quorum. But take us through the we were up to there. So this is page 62. This is really what I'm working from. My main focus is going to be on the write or reply version, which has the latest tracking in it. So page 62. Of that document. And this is 4.3, I think. Or is it? So we don't have a 62 in that document. 62 and 63. What have I got here?
Not this one.
Oh, wait on. This one here. I've got to move the other one. 62. Yep, got it. Yep, sorry. I'll throw that old one away. So is everyone at the page in the draft spatial plan?
62 or 63?
62 and 63 of the 14th of November version. Okay, got that?
Yep.
So these are the recommendation changes. I'm just trying to find the word further to. Is that at the bottom of the page or?
Right at the bottom of 62, halfway.
Oh, it's halfway through the. So my understanding is that those are new criteria that the officers have recommended to us. Is that right, Tracy?
So they've made, I believe they've made the criteria that have been utilised
Mm.
within the document.
More explicit, okay. Which is very helpful. Grant?
I'm just looking at the submission, a comment I'd written on the submission 327 called the Birches on page 69, and I've written down paragraph 19. And I kind of think probably refers to point 1 up there. I've got adjacent to or near, which sounds like it's a regional policy statement. And then policy 8, rather than adjoins boundary, the NPS urban development uses the word adjacent, i.e. a walkable catchment. So
we did have a discussion about this, if you're going to recall it. And I think we did favour just through that discussion, the adjacent wording, right? So
Can I just get clarification, please, on what day the Birch Village?
that was on the 26th, I think, the 26th.
Thanks.
here's a submission here, Victoria.
Yeah, I've got the submission up.
Did you have a?
No, I'm okay.
Birches, you're okay.
Yep.
We should go back to the wording. I think adjacent is a better term,
Yeah.
if the panel agrees. Because it has that meaning in the.
Well, I've written down the national policy statement, urban development, and maybe they have a definition in there called adjacent, and i.e. walkable catchment.
Okay. So just for our record, we'd just say adjacent. This not or near, I think. I think we just use the term adjacent. As this term is used in the MPSUD as meaning, I don't know if you want to read that again.
Well, I'm looking at the urban development strategy now, and policy 8, which I've written down here.
We can check policy 8.
Yeah, just check. It doesn't
as meaning.
Yeah, it's not what it doesn't mention the word adjacent.
Okay.
But it must be somewhere else.
Yes. So this is a note for Liz, and did that come from the Birch? I don't think it did. Did it come from the Birch?
Yes, submit a 326.
Okay.
They objected to adjoining to. Words near to.
Yes.
Adjacent or near to. Yeah.
Okay. So just for our, Kathy, you're doing the typing on this, or is Liz? Okay, sorry. So we go related to the Birch's submission.
Oh, sorry. So because I've understood that this is our kind of working document, I've just put that in there to prompt me.
Okay.
So that when we come back to it, I
Okay.
can check the thing that Grant has referred to, and then we can reference it if need be.
Okay.
So this, obviously the wording will need to be worked up. I'm just throwing stuff in there to save time.
Well, let's try and get it as accurate as we can. So as a reference, what was the number of Birches?
327.
It's probably Liz and Stephen to check and expand would be the. Okay.
referencing in respect to some developments out Prebleton Way.
Birches were, yes.
Yeah, I written down Rolleston.
Was it Prebleton?
Yeah, Prebleton as well.
Well, I think it applies, that issue in terms of RMA speak. It's quite important. And we had the discussion, I remember distinctly saying it's just adjacent or adjoins to, has occupied many days of environment courts sitting. So we don't want to get the wrong term here.
Okay, so we've landed on adjacent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anything else in terms of the suggestions from the staff? I'm just wondering about the English on that third bullet point. Shouldn't it be protects, restores and enhances, or enhances? Because if you look at the way the other parts of the paragraph are set up.
Protect, restore. Plural. Protects, restores and enhances.
Yeah. I think it's probably an or in there because it's very difficult to sometimes to do all those things. I think they are a menu, but whether the panel agrees with that.
Yeah. Accessible to either MRT.
Yeah, it's good.
Right.
Just another thing that I'd written down under that one was, and I don't think we discussed it, and it might not be relevant, but issues about urban landscape character, the peri-urban aesthetic, and housing typology within the. But are they? They're sort of. There are other documents that talk about that, aren't they? The RPS is probably going to deal with maybe.
What does the panel think? Because that's an important element.
Yeah.
We've got these four key core criteria for sort of thinking about what would make an effective potential future greenfields area.
Actually, that's probably related to the my conflict of interest issue.
So I think you should stand aside while we debate this. We still have a quorum. Thanks, Grant.
Can you step me through it, please?
Okay, so the way these criteria will work is this relates to having at least sufficient development capacity being planned for the future in terms of the next 30 years, and beyond. It's under the urban forum for people in business, and the package, my understanding is we have the growth centres around urban centres, growth nodes. We have the plan-enabled greenfield areas around local or a range of townships and centres, and they're shown in that green hatching. But for residential, the draft spatial plan does not look into the future and pick new areas that greenfield residential could go to. And the staff have been quite consistent with us that goes together the package of looking for intensification, better transport, but the way they've dealt with the idea of future greenfields growth is to identify a range of criteria that any new district plan or private plan change or application would have to sort of have regard to if those came up in the future in district and city plan processes.
Where are those four criteria?
They're right in front of us here, 1 to 4.
Okay.
Okay, so if you read that, if we need additional capacity, should align with the direction and spatial plan and desire pattern of growth. Identifying broad locations for residents should be guided by the spatial plan strategy, including the 6 opportunities, directions, and overarching directions that shape the desired pattern of growth. Broad locations at a minimum, and I think again that grammar's not right, which should be at a minimum adjoin or at. Yeah, so we'll work out the grammar. So help me, Liz and Tracy, is that what we're looking at here?
Yeah, I think that's essentially right. The strategy itself says we've got enough capacity to deal with the amount of growth that we're planning for in the 30 years. It doesn't preclude greenfield, but should additional greenfield be promoted, these are the bottom lines. So just to be clear as well, I think these are not the only things that you'd have to tick off, because the RPS and the district plans would likely have more detailed considerations, but these are essentially the bottom lines that are set out, at least at this high level. So that's not to say other things wouldn't come into play, but it's saying in order to be consistent with the spatial plan, these are kind of the 4 key things.
Jason Tools.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, which I really like. I think it's clear. I just have a wonder about whether it's further to the broad locations for new or additional residential, because that's the way I'm. But it's got
Sorry,
the word
Stephen,
additional.
can you repeat that?
So I see the first word there, further to this broad locations for new residential development to provide additional capacity. I'm just wondering if we need that descriptor there, just for clarity. Liz, your advice to us on this?
Yeah, that would make it a bit clearer. I think that this is beyond what's in the strategy itself. Yeah.
Okay. So one of the issues that I've got is with number 2, accessible to other MRT core public transport routes. It's the core that I've got a bit of a problem with.
Is that a defined term at all in the strategy? Do we know? Can we do a control F? Someone? Looking at the term core.
I think it'll be in map 15, but I'm not sure. '84 of the original and about 79 to 80. It has core public transport routes there.
72. On the
and the officers report.
I was looking at the 14 November. Is it in there?
Yes, so go to about page 79.
79.
So map 15.
Okay.
So the blue line is the core public transport route. So in effect, that's how it defines it.
Which I think is a good cross-reference.
So where's the harm if it was
I think it's important for the panel to recognise that the spatial plan is a package of seeking to provide for some greenfield residential growth, but the core really is around enhanced transport and intensification
Mm,
in urban areas. So if you just put public transport,
Yeah.
there's one bus
it's all over the place.
every 2 days, it's all over the place. So this is a focusing provision.
Okay,
Anyone wants to advocate for more additional growth?
Goes to the second part of number 2. For new parts of public transport. I suppose we're not going to know what they are, do we?
But those will evolve. So this will survive the intent of these criteria. And this is basically policy.
Yeah.
Will survive. You know, we've heard about the port to port, which the new bus service on Thursday, port to airport, for example, as enhanced PT goes along, any enhancements will assist proposals for new. So I think we're okay there.
It's the natural environment.
By the way, I went looking for the bus at the airport again this morning. And well, I couldn't, it was miles away. I walked for quite a while. And just as a visitor, why couldn't that be pulled up the first thing you see when you walk out in that first lane as you go into the car park? Because it's all car focused. But that's another story. Well, it's.
Once you get there, you know, pay by cash for
Okay. Anyway, that's off topic. Let's just focus on this. Any other inputs or comments on this before we move on?
Let's just look free from significant risks arising from natural hazards and the effects of climate change. So we have gone to great lengths to change the language around avoid to mitigate. Are we comfortable with that word free from significant risks?
I think that's quite an elegant term.
Because we have separated out significant from moderate.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think
Yep.
that's okay.
Robbie, you happy
Yep.
to go? Okay, well, let's lock this one in. We need to come back to the issue of landscape and design matters, which, to my mind, I'll get the panel's view on this. They're pretty critical urban growth matters. Any time you look at new development, particularly any significant area of new urban growth, the whole landscape, visual, urban design, quality, how it fits in with transportation, natural environment is pretty fundamental.
Yeah, agree.
So I would think we should add a 5.
Yeah.
And we could do that by just add number 5 associated with landscape and visual matters from a good urban design in integration with natural features such as streams, wetlands, etc. Does that capture it for everyone? And in brackets, note Liz and Stephen will work some words up around that. Good with that?
Yep.
And one of the things we'll also do is we'll go back and look at submissions, and because one of the things we need to do is tie it in with some submissions that we've heard about these sorts of matters.
Yep.
And there are a number.
Mm.
Okay, so I think with that one done, I'm comfortable
Yeah.
that we can move on.
Are we going to get your comments and Liz on Thursday? Is that we're going to get an email?
Mm.
Yeah,
Well,
so
final.
no, we're looking to circulate that on Friday, and we've got a working session to go through that on next Monday afternoon. It's in our diaries, I think, Kathy, remember? Okay, thank you. Oh, that's a great start, because this has been a good discussion, and we should move to the next one. On this theme of greenfields.
So this essentially is the recommendation that says they don't recommend that additional greenfield areas are identified.
Okay.
So it's just confirming that the panel's comfortable with that.
So Grant, you should come back and join us again. Musical chairs. I think we understand we've had a lot of submissions from landowners and developers who really do want further mapping to be done, particularly around areas that some of them have been promoting through other plan changes and district plan processes. The staff are quite clear. We do not recommend any changes to the draft spatial plan. In which development has provided a long-term relation to recent rezonings in the Selwyn district. Is there a similar one for Waimakariri district as well?
No, because they're a step behind. So they're in the hearing of submissions phase.
Okay.
Whereas I think at the time the officer's report was written for this, the Selwyn decisions had come out.
Okay.
So I think that the expectation is that were additional areas to be rezoned through the Waimakariri district plan process, then when you update the spatial plan, you would take those into account. But obviously you can't, to do that in advance would almost suggest, would preempt the decision making in that process. So where the officers have drawn the line is essentially to say we should map anything where that decision-making process has got to its end. Mm. And where that decision-making process hasn't got to its end, we don't think we should include them.
Have they actually said that?
Yes, in essence, that's what this section says.
Okay, but have they said specifically that second part? We should perhaps go into that.
I think so, but...
Can we just scroll up a bit? So this is Pebbleton, Lincoln. I think it's a while to sort of run that to ground if we but Liz, what's the situation, do you think, if we agree with the officers here and we're essentially not doing that, we wouldn't be adding any additional greenfield growth areas around centres or towns, either in the Waimakariri or Selwyn districts or around Christchurch, other than plan enabled? So what would be the situation for the Waimakariri district plan hearings and process if and when the spatial plan is approved and signed off? Would those hearings and process have to have regard to this document? Tracy or Liz, any thoughts?
Well, no, if I was on the hearings panel, I'd be highly brassed off. if you had to rethink things at this stage of the process, I'd be really ticked off.
Are the have those rezoning hearings been heard yet?
They're going through the process. I don't know what stage
Okay, so this is the whole issue of policy documents under the RMA, always doing the leapfrogging process. Tracy, do you have any?
My understanding that we don't take direct reference to draft documents, it does acknowledge throughout processes that there are corresponding processes underway. So I would believe in that the panel has the ability to consider
And
that is there anything in strategy that the guide would change if and when it's adopted.
Yes. Yes, next year. So, and certainly if they were thinking about new areas in and around Waimakere district, they could look at those criteria, which would be the pretty valid criteria that any decision maker would need to look at anyway. So,
and you can guarantee they will.
yes,
So
It's the RPE.
yeah, and the RPS coming up. So look, I think I take your point, because I've been there when MPSs have been dropped on me in New Plymouth once we'd finished the hearings and have done all our deliberations, and MFE were trying to suggest that we had to look at the MPS HPO, and we rejected that as a matter of law and fact, and did not, because it was not fair. But this is slightly different because this is a much broader thing, and we do have the other criteria that would make for reasonable decision making. I think we wouldn't block that by supporting this recommendation. So, Kate.
Yeah, I made a note when we did listen to the policy 8 of the MPSUD allows consideration of systems development.
Yes.
If it was considered to be that.
Yes. Well, I wonder whether we should, I'm interested, this is a suggestion, we agree in principle with the officer's recommendation and reasons. We do note the interface of this document and plan reviews and plan changes in process. But consider that the spatial strategy provides guidance for any additional greenfield areas that might be considered through those processes at the time. And then we can refer back to that criteria list.
Stephen, could I just raise some clarification?
Yes.
Is any of this contingent on the legal advice that we're going to be getting on Thursday?
No. Oh, legal advice is about
FTS.
yeah, the way things are mapped. So yes, yes, potentially. So we could ask the lawyer about this. So maybe just make a note.
Subject to.
Subject to legal advice and discussions with Williams Council. Grant.
Just the wording there, the second line, provides guidance for any location of additional greenfield
Yes.
developments rather than areas.
Yes.
Yeah, and that relates to the criteria.
Yeah.
We happy with that?
Yep.
Al, does that all make sense
Yep.
and logic?
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you for that. Let's move on.
Do you want to go back to the start now?
Are those the only two where Nicole might need to decide? I think they are, aren't they? If anything pops up, that we'll keep a weather eye out for that. And Nicole, if you could come back to the table, please. Could have taken your knitting. Okay, good work.
I think we've done this one. I think we're up to opportunity 2.
Yes. This is about climate change
So climate change.
and risks. We maybe just have a there was nothing in the 14th of November further recommendations on this.
No, so this initial recommendation, I guess, is in relation to
Yes.
broad submissions made around hazards, and in particular submitters that don't consider this evidence of climate change.
Okay.
So this recommendation is specifically in relation to those submissions and submissions seeking changes to, in effect, not acknowledge or respond to climate change.
So look, I'm just going to open this up for discussion to the panel. Let's say it's the biggest planning issue of our time, climate change, and how we plan for that. But without leading the panel, I just get a feeling for how the panel's thinking about this issue. Right.
Is this where we left off last time in this discussion about careful management versus avoidance and mitigation?
Yes.
For me, because the words avoidance and mitigation in other documents and the words that people kind of relate to, I think the idea of introducing, even though it's in the urban NPS, it doesn't provide enough direction for me. Careful management.
Sorry,
is
no, sorry, that's not what we're.
not this one?
No.
Okay.
So this is to do with, so in essence, because we're working chronologically through the officer's report. So where we got to last time was just this first recommendation, which from memory was to do with the historic heritage matters. So I've just literally moved on to the next one.
Okay.
So at this stage, this is just more broadly about submitters seeking that the plan doesn't acknowledge or reference climate change. So the carefully managed is yet to come up.
Okay. Sorry.
So that clarification, what's the sense of the panel about ensuring that the spatial plan does acknowledge potential risks of climate change?
Sorry, it's the label. Just ask for a blanket.
Oh, a blanket.
Oh, thanks.
You need one too, Tracy.
Thanks, David. A hobby.
Right. But from my view, we have to acknowledge climate change. It's just no. It's just no, from my perspective anyway. It has to be in there. We have to acknowledge it. If we don't acknowledge it, then we can't deal with it.
Yes.
Yeah,
Anyone disagree with Gail?
Look, I know we have to acknowledge it, but I'm I'm trying to recall what the issues were that the submitters were raising, and it was about the need for evidence-based. And I wonder where there's any reference to that.
I think in the officers' report, they reference a report.
Hey,
Don't they?
Liz, can you help us? I think they reference a number of reports.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in this section before they get to the recommendation, they do this footnote here does reference various climate change documents and websites footnoted below.
Can we look at that that paragraph, second last paragraph on page 45? We note that there are several well-researched scientific papers outlining climate change and its evidence base. We refer these submitters to various climate change documents and websites noted below. Is there any other, Grant?
I'm just wondering, should we be mentioning the Canterbury risk assessment document that came out last year, or was it 2022?
So that the officers then go on to say, in addition to that, there are regulatory and non-regulatory requirements, and they've listed them there. So there's that interim guidance on sea level rise from Ministry for the Environment. There's also various legislative requirements under the RMA, etc.
I think if we are to support the officers here, there would be good reason for us to reference in our recommendation report that recent Canterbury document.
Yeah, I can't remember
and we'll find the name.
Yeah.
But the first thing is I'll take a not a poll, but just a feeling around the table. Are we staying with the officer's recommendation on this one? Any issues with that?
Could we also reference it? Councils have signed up to climate change
Yes.
thing. When was that?
Climate emergencies.
Well, two of the councils are a climate change emergency, but the other, I'm not sure.
It's a
One, you haven't. Okay, sorry, but someone has.
Well, I think that's relevant for our decision making. If that is the case, as a factor.
Yeah, I think so.
This term, we haven't had the conversation yet.
Yes. Yeah.
But there is the one that was done before.
There's the Canterbury climate risk assessment #1, but there's other stuff being worked on, and I had a feeling there's a Merrill Forum climate thing.
There's a climate change declaration, LGNZ, isn't it?
Climate partnership. I think it might be called Climate Partnership.
Okay. Look,
Yeah.
because you're so intimately involved in this, it's really important for Liz and I to capture these thoughts, because we all need to give our own reasons and rationale and background in our report. So certainly keep these ideas flowing, and we'll just record them, and then we can work on the detail of those over the balance of the week. Make sure we've got the right references.
Yeah, I wonder if one of the phrases you could use is that it's not inconsistent with, or do you need to be going stronger than that?
Look, I think we've all got our own experiences, and we've all read what we've read as a panel. My strong feeling is that we are in the middle of a climate emergency. From everything I've read, and I specialise in climate change adaptation and sea level rise. As a chair and a commissioner, I take those matters very seriously, and I feel it's appropriate for the strategy to be planning with our best scientific advice, evidence-based, and this is what we have in our plan. We have the risk areas that are risk from climate change hazards are mapped up to the current state of information that the three councils have.
So the bit that I'm trying to get my head around is that we acknowledge this and that it needs to be taken into account, and yet there is potential for intensification at Kaiport. And I'm just wondering where these two fit together. Yeah, so I'm trying to figure out how this impacts on.
I raised that issue with the staff when they reported back on the 16th about the Kaipoi situation, and they said Kaipoi wasn't a priority development area. The mapping that had been done there was just recognising the current urban area that's zoned, I think. Is that right?
But there were, okay, so maybe not intensification, but there were some future broad locations for greenfields developments around Kaipoi.
Tracy's done it down.
Areas in Kaipoi.
Yeah.
But again,
they will be considered as part of the district plan review and RPS if there's any amendments to that. So I think it's related but separate from the acceptance of the climate change aspect.
Yeah, that's sort of at the next level of detail.
Mm.
So at a high strategic spatial planning level, the spatial plan
Must recognise,
yeah. Given the evidence we all know about and is recorded in official council hazard mapping. So if we're comfortable with that, we'll agree with the officer recommendation. Yes.
I'm not sure with just the word like climate emergency. Christchurch and Ecan have declared that, but not Selwyn
and Waimakariri.
Waimakariri.
Okay.
But all of them are, I've just looked up on their local government leaders climate change declaration, which is 2017, and they're all the mayors and chairs are on that are represented by this group.
Okay. Should we just add that in too? So local government.
Well, you've got a climate change declaration, LGNZ.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We comfortable to move on this decision? Recommendation. Thank you. Yeah. Next one we're dealing with, Liz, is the mapping.
So this is map 7 and 8 in particular.
Yes. So we're dealing with
So my understanding is this relates to submissions that are concerned particularly around the east.
Yes.
And the basis, I guess, for the coastal hazard mapping. So the officers have just gone through the basis for that mapping, noted that the mapping is that sort of broad brush to give a spatial extent indication, doesn't include individual properties, it doesn't include the specific planning regime. Property level mapping is yet to come. And the specific recommendation is that I think in the map legend there was a reference to the City Council's Plan Change 12, which hasn't, as I understand it, hasn't progressed. So they've recommended amending that to just refer to the actual technical study undertaken.
So on my page 48 and 49 of the 14th of November version I've got open, there's that little red box about the amendments to map 7 that have been recommending that mirror these recommendations, I think. Liz? And it's worth just looking at those. So the key things here are that, as Liz says, PC12 references have been deleted and placed with a reference to the Jacobs report, which is a 2021 risk-based coastal hazard analysis for Christchurch City Council. The tsunami evacuation red layer is to be replaced with a 3-metre inundation wave from the GNS science report, and the legend amended to remove reference to tsunami inundation red and replace with tsunami inundation high. And this is Gail's point, and we talked about the high, we're mapping the high hazards rather than the medium in this document. And amending the footnote about the map, which you see down the bottom, there's a little GIS, which I can't read. It's more for me. Yes, can you read out the new? I can read out the new one, but they're recommending to change that little note at the bottom. This one here, here it is.
Yeah. So the old one.
Yeah, I can see that there now in front of me. It's been blown up.
Oh, yeah. It's in the red where they've changed it.
Yes.
So.
Yes, which seems to make sense. And we've added the symbols for Little Port. We are going to, and the inland ports on this map as well. So,
quick question.
Yes.
The Jacobs report is what the Jacobs report is detailed elsewhere.
No, so this is essentially footnoting what the maps are based on. So it doesn't get into that level of detail.
Okay. If somebody wanted to find the Jacobs report, that is easy to do so.
With that reference in the key, it's in the legend.
Okay.
So it's actually got its title in there. Okay.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Right. So we're comfortable with the map 7 changes and recommendations and reasons.
Yep.
So Liz, is there a map 8 as well we need to look at over the page? Yes, there is. So this is the map dealing with the moderate natural hazard risks. We do have the high and the moderate, which I certainly, my planning role, knowing the moderate's quite important as well.
So the recommendations on map 8 in terms of this recommendation are exactly the same.
Same. Yep.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
I'm possibly missing something here. How can a 5-metre wave inundation create a moderate to low risk and a 3-metre one create a high risk?
It's not a stupid question.
It might come up when we get to the bit that includes this recommendation. So on the map, it includes all the recommendations, but in terms of this part of the officer's report, that doesn't deal with the tsunami. So that might be answered when we get to that.
But it doesn't seem to make sense, does it?
Just wondered if they've been accidentally switched.
Here we go.
I think it's different areas.
Are dealing with this very issue, I think, Kate, in this recommendation. Okay, so if you go back, and I think we're in agreement on both maps 7 and 8 recommended changes for the, yes? Any other discussion on this one? Take there's a no, and we'll move on.
That's good.
You comfortable with that? Right.
Sorry. I'm just looking at page 44. It says we recommend and avoid, be amended to avoid and mitigate. Has that been done in the recommendations?
Page 44.
Page 44 of the October the 4th.
Okay, I'm on.
The fourth paragraph down.
Okay, so can we actually go and take them working off the 14th version? So 44 is page 37.
43.2.
What's the reference?
Am I looking at the wrong one? 43.
I think we'll come to that, Grant, because we haven't got to that in this the officer's report.
43.2, you mean?
So yeah, so that recommendation will come up, I think, when we get down to.
Okay.
It might, in fact, it might even be this next one.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay, so refocus us, Liz.
So this is just the next topic under this
Okay.
opportunity.
So
So
can see what we recorded. Just recommendations and reasons. Okay, so it's as simple as that. For that, as a one. So we're now moving to managed retreat. Just so the panel is aware, there's a move within MFE and around the country to move away from this term managed retreat, which is causing all sorts
What
of.
have they come up with now?
They're talking about planned relocation as another term of art. It's the same thing essentially, but I just sort of let you know it hasn't come into the guidance yet, but I know it's been talked about. Grant, do you know something about that?
Well, yeah, we had a bit of debate about that too, but it's been, for us, it's been changed to remove the word retreat in favour of relocation.
Managed relocation.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it's because retreat's got like a defeatist term.
Possibly also.
Wartime analogies.
Possible also gives an indication that it might be a choice.
Yes.
Being part of or being involved with the coastal hazard stuff that's happening at Rapaki, where I'm from. Some of our people are retreat, well, we don't have to. Actually, some of you are going to have to go.
Yeah.
You know, and so maybe that's the push as well.
Yes.
So that's actually covered in the officer's response, who have noted that managed retreat isn't specifically discussed. So it's framed in a different way in terms of positively focusing growth in areas free from significant risk and strengthening resilience.
Okay. So if we did a control F, we wouldn't find managed retreat in the document.
That's my understanding of what they've said, yes.
Okay.
So do you want to go a bob each way, put managed retreat / relocation?
But the
But it doesn't say that. It's yeah.
Okay.
So submitters have. I think this is responding to concerns from submitters that the document is promoting managed retreat, and they've essentially said we don't think the document is doing that. We think it's reframing more positively that growth should be targeted to areas where you don't have significant hazards.
Yep.
I think my understanding is because of that, because they don't feel that the plan is promoting or suggesting managed retreat, that there's no change required. There is this recommendation here, which is just about, I think, acknowledging the framework that's underway.
So Kathy's just doing a control F, and we don't see retreat in the document at all.
Yeah. I'm comfortable with that new
Yes.
bullet point.
Okay, well, I'm comfortable with that as well.
Mm.
Any disagreement? No, I think we'll just write in there then, Liz. Not proposed in the social plan, and agree with officer recommendation and reasons, including the new proposed wording. All good? Move to the next one.
So this is specifically concerns about impact on Eastern Christchurch and the use of the word avoid, Grant.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think this also leads into the priority development area discussion.
Yeah.
So that, yeah, this gets into, so further responses regarding the priority area are dealt with later on.
Okay, so this is just about the wording.
Of avoid, to avoid or mitigate.
Here's our wording changes coming up.
Yes.
So we're looking at page 40 of the 14th of November document. And is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, where's the box?
Okay.
Yeah,
So Grant, do you want to lead off this one?
No, I think that covers it actually. So it's only page 40.
40 of the 14th of November. It's headed part 1, areas to protect, avoid and enhance.
So I'm just having a look, potentially mitigate. Mitigate. E. So page 43.
I can't see any change. Oh, there is some changes to the direction on page 43.
No, that's a different.
It's a
Different
different
thing?
subject.
No, so it's only page. Well, I think that.
It's dealing with 40
Yep.
and page 40. Those items. The panel supports the recommendations for the reasons provided.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Sorry, which page you on, Stephen?
On page 40.
Yep.
Heading part 1, areas to protect.
Yep.
And it's really softening the avoid, which we've heard causes real problems if it's boldly there, if there needs to be some flexibility. So the way the officers have posed is to add the word or mitigate.
Yep.
Noting that in some circumstances, mitigation may also be appropriate, which I certainly support as a sensible policy position.
Yeah. Yeah, I've ticked all that. I'm okay with that. I think it's
Okay.
good. Yep.
So I think we're all good.
Yeah,
Liz?
also just to note that also includes changing the title of map 5 to key constraint areas rather than areas to
Yeah.
protect.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
The only thing I wondered is in this part of the document, it's titled areas to protect, avoid and enhance. Do you want to add mitigate to that title as well?
Avoid or mitigate, I think would have to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that enhance, where does that come from in the heading?
Because in the that's the title of quite a large bit. So the areas to protect starts off with this. Protect is where we talked about historic heritage. It's quite a big section, so it covers off the enhancement in terms of ecological stuff. But just because it uses the word avoid right at the start, it might be worth saying avoid or mitigate as well, I think.
I agree. Yeah.
Through the new MPS for Indigenous biodiversity, the whole concept of enhancements, pretty severe and sort of part of the new compensation, enhance, offset.
So would this then be areas to protect, avoid, mitigate, and enhance, or how would you do
I
it?
think we have to be careful about our wording, because I think we're avoid or mitigate, probably.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes, because if I'm looking at opportunity 3, where it just says, which is about the natural environment, and protect on the opportunity 3 on the original document.
On the original one, okay.
Yeah. Protect, restore, and enhance.
Which page?
Page 30. Protect, restore, and enhance the natural environment. And if that heading at the moment is it's about protecting, avoiding development areas with significant natural value. So this is that heading's more to do with ecological things rather than, and so I'm wondering the mitigation, putting the word mitigation would not suit that. It's not part of that thing.
So do those opportunities come under this main heading, part 1?
So I think it might help if you look at the contents page to the original plan, which is page 9. This is a broad heading that covers opportunities 1, 2, and 3.
Yes.
So it's a shorthand for, protect, avoid, and enhance covers off opportunities 1, 2, and 3. So it's just a broad title.
But we've also got reduce and manage risks in there as well. So
you could take the wording from those. So rather than having areas to protect, avoid, and enhance, you could say areas to protect, restore, enhance, reduce, or manage.
I think we need to do that because that high level heading does not, that's all about protection and avoidance, whereas it doesn't cover some of the management and the mitigation matters we're dealing with in some parts of this section. If the panel's comfortable, Liz and I to put some thinking into that heading and come back to the panel.
Yeah,
I have to say that's helpful to refer us to the contents page because we can see now how it all fits together. Thanks, Liz.
Tracy's got
and just a suggestion, because if you look at part 2 and part 3, they're quite positive statements in terms of an urban form for people and business. So part 1 you could actually encompass and go, think just colloquially that things being in the right place. So it might be that you have, rather than trying to wordsmith a really long title as an opportunity.
Yes, I think that's a great idea, Tracy. Can we capture that for Liz as well, and then we have a cup of tea?
Sorry, what was that, Tracy? So
it was really just to line up with each of the parts, part 1, 2, and 3. So 2 and 3 are put more positively in terms of, and simply, I guess. So whether we could think for part 1, whether it's around making sure things are in the right place and well protected, or something like that.
Or a positive term. In the right place.
that's not quite right, but that's kind of what you're getting at, aren't you? Rather than using rather than using all the words from those, just at a high level, this bit is about putting growth in the right areas.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's a great idea. Yeah. Panel supportive of that? Yeah. We all agree. Thank you. And it's 10:30. Should we have a cup of tea? We're doing really well. Like this is I hope we could settle into the groove of working through this report. Shall we just be back at about 10:45?
We'll get 15 minutes instead of 10 today.
So tricky.
Need to
I have to
stretch.
say, this has been great this morning.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.